All right. So now I'd like to introduce our speaker today, our main speaker, Luis Estrada. Luis is an SMA Associate. He is an award-winning creative executive, producer, director, and production manager in TV, film, and radio. He's worked at and with PBS and NPR, Turner Broadcasting, Univision, NBC, Telemundo, Fremantle, and Paramount Pictures.
And as an orals coach, he just finished an assignment for us training senior engineers, program managers, and business development managers at Lockheed Martin Aeronautics.
Yes. Welcome, Luis.
Hello.
Yes,
can you hear me okay?
Yes, we
We
sure
can.
can.
Absolutely. Well, so can the dogs, as you can imagine. But anyway, thank you again for letting me come in to the, sorry about this, a little distracting. But anyway, thank you for inviting me again, and do want to share the experience we had. And just one thing I wanted to point out is one of the reasons why I think I even got this project was because I do listen to the town halls, and sometimes AJ and Jacques will say, "Hey, take a look at your background, your experience. There may be other opportunities that may fit your skill set." And this is one of those examples, because I'm on as a video production manager, producer, to do things like that. But it was quite when I realized after working on the Humana project, hey, orals coaching is a skill set I have as a producer and a director. So I'm always telling folks, how to perform those kinds of things, and so I thought this was a good fit. So, and it turned out it was. So let me share this was the kickoff presentation that we did for Lockheed. It's going to work. So let's see, there it is. And so basically what we did is, again, on the premise of always tell a good story, one of the things that we talked to the client about, and this kind of the approach we wanted to take with this, was two things. One is that that the way that I feel people need to present is be the best of themselves and tell a good story about their product and their approach to it. And then so always tell a good story and always be authentic, always be who you are. Unless you're Meryl Streep, you probably couldn't act your way through this. So just be yourself and be the best, and just present yourself the best way you can. And so, so this is the presentation that we gave for them. So that's why this is on here. It's so basically what we want to do is kind of introduce me as well. So this was the kickoff presentation. Oh, sorry. Oh, there you go. One of the things we talked about a lot was the schedule. So there was the logistics of this was a bit challenging because they had a hard date. They needed to finish all this by September 1st, and we had about 5 to 6 weeks to complete it. They were 3 locations. It was Palmdale, Fort Worth, and Marietta, and then this kickoff. So one of the things that was a little bit challenging there was my personal schedule, which would happen. There wasn't enough time to go to Palmdale, go home, go to Fort Worth, go home, and then go to Marietta. So basically, I just spent about 2.5 weeks hopping from city to city. So that was one of the things that we had to do as well. So then I broke it down into each week. So we had a travel day, a prep session day. And the other thing was, as you guys know, there's a lot of security in these facilities. And so it was good that I spent sort of the day prepping the room, but probably the biggest challenge of that was actually just getting access. And there were a lot of limitations that we actually were able to get cleared, is that we couldn't use, at first they said, you can't bring in your own equipment. We have to use the video services of Lockheed. And at the end of it, we actually got clearance so I could bring in my own equipment. It wasn't anything too heavy, but as you'll see, one of the key things here is recording and then providing some feedback. So then we had the days. So basically my day was I would sit in a conference room. I would set everything up, and then people would come in, and then we'd talk and we'd go through the session. And we did talk to about 39 people at the end of the day. So it was a pretty successful deal here. Let me see. So just being the nature that I am, I did ask the client, can we set up the room in a certain way? This is the equipment that we need. Those kinds of things. They had presentations that they had to prepare. So we worked through each piece, but at the end of the day, because of some of the content they had and wanted to present, basically we just went through their internal system and they presented pretty much as they would to a client or to their management or whatnot. So the idea was to really recreate in that room what they really do. And then my job was kind of to record it and then give them feedback. A daily, like I said, this was kind of a typical day. About 8 o'clock, we do session 1, 9 o'clock. So we'd finish about 50 minutes of the feedback. And they all seem very, very open to it. A lot of them did have or do have a lot of training, not only in the military, but outside of the military. And one of the things that I kept hearing that was refreshing for them is that they felt it wasn't a cookie cutter presentation or oral presentation or feedback or coaching. It was basically what I did was listen to them, listen to their presentation, and then we played it back. And then we just kind of stopped on each piece and asked, basically gave them some feedback on each one. And most of them, it was great to see their kind of moment of, whoa, I really do that, So, and yeah, they did. So in preparation, we did a Zoom call, which was this presentation. We did, we assigned the homework, which was two 5-minute presentations. One was on a hobby of theirs, whatever they would like to present on, and the other one was actually work related, which of course they had to edit because of the clearance and classified issues, but a lot of interesting work, as you could probably imagine, and you already know that they are doing. So that was also very enlightening for me as well. And then I also asked them what they felt their strengths were as a presenter, the areas they want to grow. And we really concentrated on areas of growth because a lot of them do give a lot of presentations. Some of them didn't, and some of them have been doing it for a long time. So there was a couple of fellows that came in and were just incredibly good. And then told them, gave them some feedback as well. And they appreciated that feedback because it took their presentation skill to the next level. So that's one thing they really appreciated. And then basically I told them what to expect. You have your 5-minute presentation. We introduce, where would you like feedback on? This is the typical 1-hour session with them. And then what we do is go ahead and have them do their presentation. And I record the whole thing. And then we play it back with them, just one-on-one, and basically give them all the feedback. And then we do the presentation again, this time after the feedback. And then we discuss that again in areas of growth as well. And again, they were very, very appreciative because they felt it was very different than the coaching they'd gotten in the past. Because in the past, they felt, well, they tell me to, brush my teeth and comb my hair. But reality is, I really wanted something a little bit more. And one thing that a comment that the client made that I thought was really interesting is, it was, I guess it was in Marietta, we sat down and he said, the folks are really enjoying the sessions with you. Some of them felt it was like a therapy session. And I said, really? Well, that's, I think, good, right? Because they learned from it. They were, and they were I think they really, really enjoyed the process. So again, this is the way the process went. We recorded, we replayed, we took a few notes, and then we just kind of relayed. This again is the first presentation that we gave, the kickoff presentation where everybody was present over Zoom. And that was the key thing. Always tell a good story, always tell a good story. We also talked about the why. One of the things about presenting in anything, and probably we don't always think about it in this industry, let's say, is that we know what we do, we know how we do it, but why we do it. And this is based on what Simon Sinek, you've probably seen. If you haven't, you should see it. The TED Talk that he does on YouTube is one of the most popular ones there is. But one of the things we did talk about is the why. And there was an individual why too. It was not only hey, we're doing it, for the safety of our country, those kinds of things, but each individual also. So what that does, by understanding the why you're doing it, why am I doing this right now? Why is AJ, Jacques, all of you, why are you doing what you're doing? And you understand it, it makes you a much more powerful speaker, because then you stop thinking about the nervousness. You start thinking about what people are going to think. Is your tie on straight? I mean, who's in the audience, those kinds of things. And you really sort of understand is, what, I'm here because of this, and I'm excited about it, and I'm inspired by it, and I'm going to try and portray that, or, extend that to the people I'm talking to. The other thing we talked about was about communication, and 10% of communication is verbal, and that's it. I mean, and they're going like, well, what does that mean? It means that when you're presenting, 90% of everything is really under the surface. And say, for example, right here, body language, facial expression, physical sensations, relationships, emotions. When you're presenting to someone, like right now, I'm presenting to you, and I feel pretty comfortable about it. But I also know my son is probably out there watching as well. So that's probably the thing that makes me the most nervous, to make sure that I make him proud in this presentation as well. But here's an interesting story that happened in Palmdale. Is one of the people that I was coaching had he did his presentation. And I noticed while he was doing his presentation, he was looking at a slide and he was going through the process of the work they were doing. And then the final product was there, and he made a really weird gesture on his face, like a really negative gesture. And so when we were reviewing, I stopped there and I said, why did you make that facial expression? He goes, well, what do you mean? He says, so, and I showed it to him and said, did that project not go well? Because the impression that I got was that was not a good, that did not go well. And he said, no, it went really well. I said, well, there's an example of how, what he was thinking about was actually something else. He was thinking about his presentation, what he was doing is very self-conscious, and he thought he messed up a word. And so he got this, kind of thing. And I told him, that's why you can't worry about the words. Once you say the words, they're out, they're done, it's over. The key is that the learning moment was that when he made that expression, it gave the impression that it didn't go well. And if you're sitting in the audience and you saw that, you would say, wow, I don't think they did, something must have gone wrong, in that project, because he did not look happy. And so those are the tiny little things that sometimes you think are unimportant, or you don't even know you're doing, but could definitely affect your presentation. And then we just talked about, you need to plan, you need to prepare. I mean, I think there's a saying somewhere that for every minute of presentation, you've got to do an hour of prep, or 3 hours of prep, or something like that. But the plan is you really need to plan it out. You need to prepare it. You need to practice, and then you need to perform. Now, one of the most important things, again, is perform you, right? Don't perform, Robert De Niro. Don't perform somebody else. Perform who you are. One of the things that I've always found funny from Christopher Walken, the actor, is that he always says, I'm not an actor, I'm a performer. So when you see me on the screen, I'm performing me. And so that's what we're doing here as well. So, so that's one of the things that we talked about as well. Just know your subject, be authentic. When anybody's ever presenting, again, I'm presenting now, you may, sometimes I'll skip words, or I'll do that kind of thing. Unfortunately for me, it's very authentic, because that's the way I present. But I do try to inspire. And so try to inspire people. Remember, the presentations are about the audience. You're trying to inspire them to do something, to take some action that's positive for you and your company. So that's why you're there. You're representing not only yourself, but your company. And if you're happy and confident, even though it's not said or even thought about, that tells the people listening to the presentation that you're actually a happy person and you're enjoying the work you're doing, and you're going to do good work for them. And practice makes perfect. I mean, there's no other way around it. It's, you just need to practice, understand what you're saying. And then, but when it comes time to perform, just perform as authentic as you can. And then there were takeaways, we talked about it when Dave was here, talk to one person in the audience, speak clearly, emphasize the good points, know your subject cold, which is always super important. Remember, the PowerPoint presentations like this one and any ones that you do are guides. One of the things we talked a lot about is the relationship between you and the PowerPoint. And I would tell them, I say, you and the PowerPoint are one. You are presenting, and you want people to be listening to what you're saying. And so what happens is a lot of the time you got so much stuff on the PowerPoint. Guess what happens? You do it, I do it, everybody does it. When that PowerPoint comes up and there's a bunch of words and lists, now you're reading, not listening. So I told them those PowerPoints, there should be two versions of it. There's a version that you hand out with all the detail, and there's a version that you present with. And this was my suggestion to them, because then they're listening to you. The other thing is that I told them always be moving, because what happens a lot of times, and they get trained, they told me, they said, well, we get trained in military just to stand, right, and project out. And I told them that I'm sure it's great training, and I'm sure it's fine, but from a human standpoint, if you're sitting, and how many times have you been sitting in an audience where somebody's just standing there talking and the slides are just going by? What happens? Your mind starts to wander, right? You're thinking about something else because there's no movement. And naturally, we look for the movement. So what's going to happen is, I told them, don't be afraid to walk across, to make eye contact, to move your hands, to really be authentic, of course, but basically perform your presentation. And then that way, guess what happens? You move, and they have to look up because you're moving, and now they're listening again. So those little things are very important to keep motion, because if you don't, what's going to happen is, people drift away. It's just a natural human thing. Be prepared for questions, of course, and always dress for success, and be well groomed. Those are the kind of things that could actually, for people to go, oh, I don't know if I should trust this person. Oh, they didn't shave this morning, or they didn't, their shirt is all messed up, or whatever the case is. But just make sure that, that you're presentable, right? You want to make sure that you look good while you're up there. And that's pretty much what we did. Is we, kind of went through it with, in general with everybody. And then afterward, on a one-on-one with each one of them, we basically, went through each one. We also went through each of their experiences, because each of them were different levels of presentation, and each of them had different experiences. So that was the other thing that I really, really, really catered to, the one-on-one with them. And that's what I think made this very successful. And the feedback that I got from the client was very positive. And I think this is I think there's still sessions that are coming up over the next year. But anyway, so that's the way that I approach the oral training. And from what I can tell so far, and hopefully, Darren, you can attest to that, hopefully, and we'll keep this project going. And that's it. Thank you for listening.
There we go. All right, great. Hey, thank you so much, Luis. And instead of embedded software engineers, I'm going to do embedded learning. I'm going to move. We're going to move. All right, great. Excellent. How's that, Luis, for real-time learning?
Yeah.
So we only have time for one question. I'm going to ask that question. Okay.
All right.
And so I know you had the chance to work up with some fabulous actors. You were on The Untouchables, I think, right? And so how similar, is kind of that real-time feedback that directors give to the actors in a movie or on stage as the type of feedback you were giving to the folks at Lockheed?
It's very similar. And that's what was interesting about your suggestion about looking at your skill sets and what you could use. Because what the actor has to do, and these are, you have to inspire them. You have to kind of get deeper into their head. Right. I'm sure you've heard these, and some of them are, weird stories and tragic stories of how a director will actually insult the actor and then ask him to act, because that's the way to get that. Not that he really means it. It's just that he wants that performance. And so so same thing with those presentations where you're giving a presentation, is people may actually try to trip you up. How many times have that happened, right?
Oh, yeah.
Somebody asks
Oh,
you
yeah.
a question because they know the answer. They
Yeah.
just want to know if you know the answer.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
It's always a
yes,
heckler
very
in the
similar.
crowd.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Luis. That was
Thank you.
fabulous. I learned a lot.
Absolutely.
I know we're going to love to have you back on as well. And I know that I was with you, with Darren and Roll when we were there to close the deal. And I know that they really liked your approach to all of this, and as evidence now.